My name is Jennifer Gray Thompson, and I am the CEO of After the Fire. Welcome to the podcast, How to Disaster: Recover, Rebuild, and Reimagine. In this podcast, we bring you the very best practices, best hearts, and great ideas from other disaster-affected communities. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Season 3 of the How to Disaster podcast, where we help you recover, rebuild, and reimagine. During this season, we will be releasing Take Fives, shorter episodes that highlight some of our past guests speaking about similar issues, themes, topics. We wanted to do this so that perhaps it'd be easier if you only have a few minutes, but you wanted to connect with these focused episodes and guests, that you could condense all their messages into one smaller bite-sized piece. One of the things that we know about disaster is that we really have to meet people where they're at. And sometimes where you're at is you only have 5 minutes. We're very excited for the third season. We've got great guests and wonderful information and content about how to actually help get your community through to the other side. So thank you for joining us. And if you wish to find out more, please visit our homepage at afterthefireusa.org. Consider giving us a like or follow if you like this podcast. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
The primary foundational concept of the microgrid is that it's distributed energy. So instead of the way that we have generated electrical power for 150 years in this country, which is to have a large centralized power plant or plants that are expected to serve a whole lot of facilities, homes, people that might be geographically a really long way away from them. A microgrid is a collection of energy generation and storage and distribution assets that sits together very close to where the energy is going to be used. And so that's a really different architecture from what we currently have.
One of the big problems that we set out to solve was just the fact that people have so little effective geospatial map-based information about where to go and how to get there during a disaster. And when we learned about this problem for citizens, it got me asking a lot of questions, starting with my dad's department in Petaluma, California, and branching into a lot of other fire departments in California and on the West Coast. And what I learned is that first responders are also depending on not real-time information, but oftentimes relying on paper maps and radios to make a lot of the decisions when it comes to containment of one of these incidents. So at Perimeter, we look at both these scenarios, and we've recognized that there's only a few specific essential types of information that both first responders and citizens need to be able to make the most effective decisions possible. And our goal is to create that platform and not only provide the most relevant information for both parties, but also to give them an interface that allows them to have the communication gap bridged between the two different types of people during one of these situations. And we believe that by bringing first responders and public safety into and in conversation with the general public, by getting them the information that they need to make decisions, we're going to have much more effective processes when it comes to evacuation and containment and many other things happen during all types of disasters.
The chaos and the uncertainty is just phenomenal. And I don't think any of us in our lifetimes been through anything like this. And none of us can really predict when it will end, how it will end, and where we're going to be when it's over. And all we can do is try and get through this and use this time in the way that they always say, don't waste a good crisis. Use this time to examine what we've been doing, what can we improve, and how do we come back and rebuild better than we ever were before, and use it not only for digitization and moving more into the online world, but for decarbonization. You know, this can also be a time where we start to address climate change, which ties right back into the power, because our power grids are so vulnerable to the wildlands and tree branches and sparks and things like that. So there's a lot of synergy about the solutions. The problems maybe not feel that synergistic, but the solutions, if we do the right things, we can solve multiple problems at the same time. And I'm very excited about that.
Fannie Mae provides mortgage options for you and your family. If you have a mortgage owned by Fannie Mae, you may have financial options available after a disaster, such as forbearance plans, deferral of payments, lending assistance, and counseling. Find out more from our Disaster Response Network. Go online at www.knowyouroptions.com/relief or call 1-877-833-1746 today.
Back to natural gas,
Yeah.
I see it as sort of a similar thing that is way cleaner than coal or oil. It's still a fossil fuel, so it's not a renewable asset. And eventually we're going to run out of easy to access resource for it. However, right now, you know, it is a better step than we had before. It's more likely to be centralized generation than distributed, but sometimes it's not the case. One of the use cases for natural gas I really love is called CHP. That stands for combined heat and power. And basically it means that you have a massive generator engine that's burning natural gas to produce electricity, but then you're capturing the heat off of that and using it to make steam or hot water or some other form of heat that you can then distribute and glean the heat off of it too. What we were looking at for like industrial indoor farming was a CHP based solution. And that was why we were taking a look at if they could get natural gas to the farm. It's actually a really symbiotic relationship, because not only in the winter do they need to power their lighting, they need to heat so that the plants don't freeze, but they were buying bottled carbon dioxide to put inside the greenhouse to encourage plant growth, because plants like carbon dioxide. And so with a CHP plant, with a natural gas fired plant, you can recapture carbon dioxide and feed it to the plants.
So there are currently two interfaces for Perimeter. One of them is simply a cross-platform web app. That means that if I sent you a link to your phone, you'd click it, it would take you to a website, and it would show you where you are on the map and what kind of emergency incident information that would be most relevant to you, where that is as well. And so we see the web link being something that will probably be primarily accessed by citizens who need to be able to make a quick decision and might not have time to download an app. However, we see the app itself as being incredibly valuable for the first responders because, you know, in part, something that they deal with on a regular basis is, for example, losing connectivity, and they need to make sure that information is actually saved locally to their devices. So I think one thing that we'll be able to do for the first responders that we work with that can definitely minimize some aspects of the stress that they face is our platform will be automatically saving the information about the incident to their phone in a way that, you know, they don't have to think about it. They don't have to remember to download anything. As soon as they have any kind of connectivity, they have access to the map and any kind of relevant incident information. It's already saved. And, you know, when they're out in the middle of nowhere and they don't have that connectivity, they still have access to the information that might make a huge difference in their lives. And the way that it works right now is, you know, there is some information out there that we can kind of gather together or aggregate in a way that is, you know, really valuable for first responders. For example, wind speed and wind direction is a factor that drastically influences the course and direction of a fire. And that's something that we can provide to first responders in real time and in an incredibly intuitive way. Whereas for citizens, something that we're really focused on, like I mentioned earlier, is all around the evacuation use case. It's showing citizens, hey, here you are in space, you know, here's the evacuation zone, and here are the routes that have been recommended for your evacuation. Here are the temporary refuge areas that you might want to be going to. And so that's the type of information that we're providing. And I think knowing that there's one place for that information is absolutely essential to knowing that you can have things under control.
I think one of the key things is what you just said, that there needs to be cooperation, and that really the only way we get anything done anymore is through collective will. It's when we all decide that we have a common purpose, find that common ground, and we're going to work on this together. We have definitely proven that government can't do it alone, business can't do it alone, people can't, in a community can't do it alone. You need to have all those people pulling together collectively to achieve any kind of change or solution. And so what I hope is that we can see a way to build collective will in a stronger way. It's been absolutely heartbreaking to me, the ability to get communication out that people should wear a mask, that it's become political, that there isn't this concern for your fellow man. And, you know, it was like in the fires we had in 2017, 2019, everybody came together as a community to help each other and to provide refuge and give money and whatever was needed to help people get back on their feet. But now we have this thing with the pandemic that is just extraordinary, that people don't feel like they have to help each other. They don't feel like they have to take care of each other. And, you know, if we were just wearing masks, thousands of people would not be dead or permanently damaged, you know, with the ravages of the virus. So somehow we have to figure out a way to get beyond that. And I feel very much that we're not as divided as a nation. There's so many things we agree on. We've got groups trying to make us be more divided, but we've got to find that collective will. And if we do that, then we'll be able to work much better in getting the government we deserve, because right now we have a lot of people who are in government for different reasons and not necessarily to be there as problem solvers and you know, trying to see how can we make things better, but they're there more to be regulators and to say no and, you know, say you can't do this and all that, instead of saying here's how we could do it, or trying to figure out how do we figure that out. There's a lot of ways that government has worked that don't work in the 21st century that we need to see if we can figure out cooperatively. How do we bring some of the problem solving and critical thinking skills that business uses to solve problems into government? How do we build more of a community investment in the future, that we all matter and we all count, we all are going to have a role to play? And one of my big things I've always talked about, is having been an elected official, is we hear way too much about people's rights and not about their responsibilities. That whole idea of what being a citizen means, and that we all have responsibilities to do things to make our government work and to make our communities stronger.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast, How to Disaster. For more information, please visit our website at afterthefireusa.org. And if you liked this video, please hit subscribe.
Navigating the recovery process after a fire is challenging, particularly with the additional issues caused by COVID-19. Fannie Mae is here to help. If you live in a FEMA-declared disaster area, you can request free assistance from our Disaster Response Network. Fannie Mae, in partnership with Murray Management International's Project Porchlight, launched the Disaster Response Network in 2018. This program uses HUD-approved counselors to offer support. These counselors have been specially trained as disaster coaches. They address the challenges homeowners and renters face when recovering from a disaster. There's no charge for their services. The goal of the Disaster Response Network is to help people return to pre-disaster normal as quickly as possible. Clients are matched with a coach who work with them one-on-one throughout their recovery. In the initial conversation with clients, coaches review the status of the homeowner's recovery process, including current challenges, decisions that need to be made, and immediate long-term goals. They discuss topics like income and expenses, insurance, housing, credit or debt challenges, as well as aid or other assistance programs that may be available. This may include FEMA applications and Small Business Administration, or SBA, loans. The coach helps the client plan and prioritize the next steps for their recovery. Moving forward, the coach continues to be there for the client, reaching out to them regularly, at least monthly, but more often when needed, for up to 18 months' time. These regular check-ins provide the client the opportunity to ask questions, get help tackling challenges, and keep things moving as they work through their recovery. It's also where coaches can help identify new recovery assistance or grants that have become available, strategize new next steps for recovery, and talk through difficult decisions or priorities. One of the key ways coaches assist disaster response network clients is by helping intervene when something has gone awry. Coaches will, with the clients on the line, call insurance companies to adjust their claims when costs exceed initial estimates, or call the client's creditors to request payment relief. The Disaster Response Network's approach ensures survivors have a personal financial expert working with them throughout their recovery. By helping minimize the financial impact of a disaster, survivors can recover more quickly. To get confidential disaster relief assistance, call the Disaster Response Network at 877-833-1746. Once again, that is 877-833-1746. Or visit knowyouroptions.com/relief for more information.